Every time the Bilderberg Group meets, they send out messages to the world. We are the ones sending out messages from this Bilderberg 2013. And it is, we ain't having it anymore. We know what you're doing. We're not having it. Human race, get off your knees, because the lion sleeps no more. And the people gathered to say, enough! Yeah! I think the best thing that you can do to understand the world and to understand yourself is to realize it ain't you that's mad, it's the world we live in, and it's the people who run it. That's when the penny drops. Because what we've got is a situation where insanity has become normal. And this is how it happens. You're born into a madhouse, but you're told it's sane. You grow up in a madhouse. There's nothing that you ever see that isn't in the madhouse. And so to you, madness is normal. And when someone comes along and says, this ain't normal, this is madness, they say, you're bloody mad. And you know, the mainstream media, you know, bless their cotton socks, are going to have to come to terms very soon with a simple fact, that the person they abused and ridiculed for nearly a quarter of a century was the one who was sane, and the world they believe in is what is insane. Once we realize that dynamic, the world starts to make sense. The world is upside down, and it's full of evil and slaughter and injustice for a simple reason. We, in our sleep up to this point, have allowed evil people to take control of our world, of the inversion of this world. Sitting here are thousands of loving, caring people who want peace and justice and fairness in the world. Over there is a hotel full of war criminals, parasites, right? Pedos, etc. Bankers, need I say more? I think I pronounced it correctly. And the police are protecting them from us. Police, you should be protecting us from them. So we have a situation where we have police that are very, you know, genuine, although they're being sifted out more and more, and we have police that are not very nice. But what's the point I'm making here is, the police are not from the elite 1%. The police are from the people, and yet they gravitate to protect the elite 1%. This is crazy. Police, join us. We are you, you are us. And I'll give you another fantastic inversion. Bombing cities of civilians to protect them from violence. You know, and there's the mainstream, but oh no, it's the Arab Spring, they're fighting for their freedom. I'll tell you what the Arab Spring is in one single sentence. Oil. People with brown faces being played off against people with brown faces so that people with white faces can steal their land. And we have an inversion in the media, so much that we actually have a newspaper in this country that is owned by a Russian oligarch and a former employee of the KGB, and it calls itself The Independent. The world is crazy and upside down. Most crazy. The characters in there who are dictating our world day after day, year after year, look at them. Kissinger.
Kissinger.
What did he say? I don't know, mate. I've got a clue. I've never understood the word the bloody man said. And there's Rockefeller and all these people have been on. And then there's Mandelson. Mandelson. For people watching who are not from this country, Peter Lord Mandelson was the puppeteer of Tony Blair, known as the Prince of Darkness, not without bloody reason. He'll be in there tonight at dinner, Mandelson, rushing to finish his soup before it clots. You know, have you seen Mandelson? I can't work him out. I've never seen anyone with his nose so far in the air he didn't fall over. He walks around as if he's got a putrid smell under his nose all the time. And of course he has, himself. And I just want to put this thing into context, not least for the mainstream media, because what they do is they treat everything as a dot. If you treat everything as a dot, you don't see the picture. So let's put some dots together. First of all, the Bilderberg group is not the conspiracy. It is a strand in the conspiracy. What we're looking at, dictating our lives and pushing us on into this Orwellian nightmare that they have planned, forget it, is that they have a spider and a web structure. The spider in the center of the web is the inner sanctum that no one ever sees, and they dictate, there's very few of them, they dictate through the spider's web. Now each strand in the web is like a secret society, a corporation, it's an organization of some kind. And immediately around the spider are all the real exclusive ones, some of which don't even have names, because if it doesn't have a name, it's much more difficult to pin it down. And it comes out, and it's still in the hidden. And you come through the upper levels of the Jesuits and Opus Dei, and the real upper levels of the Freemasons and the Knights Templar, all these people, and you're coming out in the hidden. And then there's a point, a cusp, where the hidden comes into the scene. And the Bilderberg group stands at that point. Before all this work and toil to expose it, it was much more in the hidden. But we pulled it out, and it's at this cusp where it starts from this way out to the edge of the web. It's now starting to dictate and to connect with organizations we know, governments, government departments, corporations, banking systems, and what have you. And its job is to take the spider's diktats and turn them into policy playing out through governments and other organizations represented in there. That's its job. And to understand the world, we need to understand two things. One, where do they want to take us? And two, how do they want to take us there? Or how are they taking us there? If we know those three things, we become immediately streetwise on a level never close to before. And where they want to take us is into a world fascist, communist, same thing, different name, world fascist, communist dictatorship, which would make Orwell wince. And it would be based on an enormous centralization of power. This starts to answer so many things about the world. When you are a tiny few at the core and you want to control the many, you have to centralize decision making. The more diversified it is, the less control any central point is going to have over those decisions. So what we've seen is an incessant centralization of power in all areas of our lives, and after not very long and quite a way back now, it even got a name: globalization. Globalization is the centralization of power in every area of our lives. There's a man who actually has been given the title the father of globalization. His name is Peter Sutherland, and he's in there now. Peter Sutherland was the first head of the World Trade Organization, which was designed and set up by the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds to impose massive fines that force countries to open themselves to the merciless world market which they control. That's what globalization's about. We talk about free trade. Free trade? Oh, you must like free trade. It's free. Well, it's not. I'll tell you what free trade is. It's making your products for a few cents on the dollar for people in slum conditions, and then you take them across to the richer countries and you sell them for as much as you get. What free trade is freedom to exploit at both ends of the process. That's what Peter Sutherland has been involved in for decades. Also involved in Goldman Sachs now, stands back in amazement. And so we've had this incessant centralization of power for a simple reason. And it's got faster for this reason. The more you centralize power, the more power you have to centralize quicker. And so the whole thing goes faster and faster and faster. And so, with the European Union, once we crossed the Rubicon of the Lisbon Treaty, they had assembled enough centralized power within the bureaucracy of the EU to push it on faster and faster and faster, as they have since. So the idea is the constant centralization of power to this end. They want a world government which would dictate all global policy that meant anything. They would have a world central bank dictating all finance globally. They would have a single electronic currency that would have no cash, for which there are massive implications for freedom. Look at all the stuff now with the technology. You're seeing it. I was writing about this 20 years ago that it was coming. All these smartphones and stuff. Oh, you don't need to go in the bank anymore. Do it online. Oh, do it from your phone. They're creating the cashless society based on a single electronic currency. And the cashless society means this. If you go into a store or a shop now and you hand over electronic money, a credit card, and the system says no, won't accept it, at least for now, though it's going out of fashion so fast, you can pay cash. Once cash is gone, that's the idea, then when that computer says no to your electronic money, your microchip as they ideally want, then it's deciding if you can or cannot purchase. It's about control. That's what it's about. And you see, the euro was never meant to work. Because they want this single currency, they have to do it in steps. It means that they had all those European currencies, the guilder, the lira, the mark, and all the rest of them. Now, they had to get rid of them on the road to a single global electronic currency. So in comes the euro, and it wiped them all away. Massive step forward to that goal I've been writing about all these years. Now, all they need to do is destroy the euro and the world currency in general, and they'll say, well, what we have to do is we have to have a world currency to sort out this problem. Alongside the world government and world central bank and single currency, they want a world army to impose the will of the world government. Now, we already have a world government de facto. It goes under names like G8 and G20 and all this stuff. UN Security Council. We also have a de facto world army, and it's called NATO, which imposes the will of these people. Send the boys in. So we're seeing it unfold before our eyes, and still the mainstream media can't see it because it can only see dots and not pictures. And there's two techniques that are necessary to understand. Many people will be aware of these here, but I'll go through them for the mainstream media. Because that's the thing, you see. This is the thing. This is what the mainstream media do not understand in their bewilderment at what's happening, is vast numbers of people are now far more informed about the world than they are. Yeah! This is the point. The first technique I gave the name to a long time ago now, problem, reaction, solution. Real simple. You want to change the world in a way that if you did it openly, there would be a massive response against it. So you don't do it openly. You first of all create a problem which you blame someone else for. 9/11 and all that stuff, a banking crash, a government crash, and you blame it on someone or something else. You then, here we go again, through a unquestioning mainstream media, you pass on your version of that problem to the public, and you're looking at stage 2 for a reaction of fear, of anxiety, of do something, something must be done. And then you, who've covertly created that problem, then offer the solution to the problems you've created. And those solutions are changes in society that advance the agenda towards this structure I'm talking about, that would never have happened without the manipulated problem. There's even a version, Tony Blair's good at these. Tony Blair,
what?
yeah.
Tony Blair!
If there's ever a half-truth in a Blair speech, it's the typing error, okay? But it's an add-on to that technique, an offshoot, which I call no-problem reaction solution. This is when you don't need a real problem to justify the solution, you just invent one. Weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Dead simple. Don't need a problem. Invent it. And alongside problem reaction solution, its partner almost always hunts together, what I call the totalitarian tiptoe. Again, dead simple, and my goodness me, that brings us back to this organization here. You start at A, as they did, and you know you're going to Z. You know where the agenda's leading. But if you go there too quickly, the changes in society are such that people look up and go, what's going on? What's happening? And so you do it in steps, as big as you can get away with, but not so big that you alert too many people. And so what we've seen, in the most classic example, which brings us to this organization, so the totalitarian tiptoe is the European Union. We have a European Union centralized bureaucratic dictatorship thanks to the Bilderberg group and its manipulation over decades. The Bilderberg group was created in part by a man called Joseph Rettinger. It just so happens that Joseph Rettinger was one of the major instigators of the European Union. And he worked in creating the initial common market with a man called Jean Monnet, who is still today called the father of Europe, the father of the European project. I have a quote here from a letter by Monnet, one day after I was born. April the 30th, 1952, right at the start of the European project, orchestrated in so great a part through this. And this is what Monnet said in 1952. Europe's nations should be guided towards the superstate without their people understanding what is happening. This can be accomplished by successive steps, each disguised as having an economic purpose, but which will eventually and irreversibly lead to federation. This is not an accident. This is not, oh, we better have a Maastricht Treaty. Shall we have a Maastricht Treaty? It's all projected forward. And we have now reached the point in Europe where something like 70-odd% of the laws that are introduced into this country start out in the bureaucracy in Brussels. That's how far we have gone. And we've got a situation, the guy in there called Viscount Etienne d'Avignon, right? They love their titles, these people. You know, I reckon Mandelson must have had an orgasm for a month when he was made a lord, you know. Ronaldo, I'm a lord. You're a prat. The d'Avignon guy said a few years ago, when he was chairman of this bloody lot, that they were involved and instrumental in bringing in the euro. Leaked documents from the 1955 Bilderberg meeting in Germany show that they were talking about the common market at that time and where it was going. So, we have a situation here where the media are saying, oh, no, there's no conspiracy, they're just meeting to have a chat. When the evidence is overwhelming that what is decided there comes down into policy that affects all of us. And we have a devastated fishing industry in this country. We have a devastated mining industry. And we have a devastated manufacturing industry because of these people over the decades. Maybe a lot of people don't realize this, but it was proved when documents came to light under the 30-year rule of the British government, when they released documents. Edward Heath, when I was a kid in the 60s, was never off the telly pressing us to join the common market. Edward Heath, major Bilderberger, frontman gopher for the House of Rothschild, especially a guy called Lord Victor Rothschild, who helped to set this thing up. Heath, in his negotiations, while denying it at the time, agreed, when signing us into Europe at the start of the 1970s, that he would run down, Britain would run down, our fishing industry on an island nation, manufacturing and all the other stuff and mining, because right from the start, they had stitched Europe up and set out a structure all the way back at the start through these people, where they were dictating which countries within the European superstate would specialize in what. And what they decided Britain would specialize in is service industries, banking, and the City of London. And what has happened since is that all the things that Heath agreed to run down when he joined have been run down massively, with great, unbelievable devastation for families and people's lives. They don't give a shit. And at the same time, the things that Britain was supposed to specialize in, they're the ones that have been expanded and expanded and expanded, not least the City of London. This is not something that happens by chance. It doesn't happen by random. It doesn't happen in a projection a few weeks or months or even years forward. What is unfolding in front of our eyes is a conspiracy to enslave humanity in a global Orwellian state in which the whole area of what they want has been set out for beyond decades, and it will continue to play out until we stop it. Predicting the future is easy. Predicting the future is easy when you uncover what the projected agenda is, because if nothing comes in to intervene and stop it, it will happen. That's what makes predicting the future easy. That's why all these things are happening now that were in my books years ago. It's not because you're a bloody prophet, but unless we stop it, it unfolds. Our role now, it's coming to our attention, is to stop it and put the spanner in the works. And we have the power to do it. They have, over there, many representatives of the banking system. A banking system which lends people money that doesn't exist, called credit, and then charges them interest on it. Oh my God! How can the police stand there and not arrest them? Anyone else lent someone, or gave someone something that didn't exist and asked for money for it, their collar would be felt. Bankers, no problem. And the reason is the banking system is absolutely at the foundation of how the enslavement is being played out. Because 2008 was not a crash by accident, it was a crash by design. The world they want is symbolized so perfectly here. They want a world in which there is a tiny, tiny few of mega, staggeringly rich people that have now, again, like globalization, been given a name, the 1%. It's less than that, actually, in the really upper echelons. They want that group running everything and living apart from the rest of humanity, in like a Hunger Games situation with the capitals in the Hunger Games. They then want not a gradual going down of income and wealth from the 1% down into the population. No, no. They want the 1% to come down here, and that's the population. They want one mega rich few and a mass of mega poor people. Now, when you look at the graph today, in America, for instance, it's shocking. Because if you look through the past, there was some kind of gradual incline between the poor and the rich. Now you look at it, they are targeting what they call the middle class, the people that thought they were okay in the world before, and they are crushing them, and the graph goes like that now, and then up so high in the 1% that part of the top of the graph has to be put at the side of the other because it goes off the page. That's where we are now. What's happened is that in the last few years, since 2008, is that crash has been used to do this. It's been used to create a fantastic transfer of wealth from people to these people and the ones they represent. That is unknown in human history. We first of all had the crash. It's a banking problem. Then, well, by the way, the people involved in causing that crash were people like Alan Greenspan, head of the Federal Reserve, in league with people like Robert Rubin, who was Clinton's Treasury Secretary, and Timothy Geithner, who was involved with the Federal Reserve Bank. Both of those people are in there now. And when Obama came to power, after these guys had crashed the bloody economy, he appoints Geithner as his Treasury Secretary to sort it out. And what does he do? Stands back in amazement. He decides that posing money at banks is the way to sort it out. So what we had as a result of that was the transfer of wealth on a fantastic scale from people through governments bailing out the banks to the banks. As a result of that, there was another transfer just shortly after that, which so many people here and around the world will well bloody know. And that was the transfer of the problem from governments to the people through programs of austerity. So, and as a result of what happened in Cyprus, we're going to the next stage now. They're taking governments out of that transfer of wealth from the people to the banks and the elite, out of that, and they're going straight to the bank accounts of the people. And that precedent set in Cyprus means that when the next banking crash comes, they're probably organizing it now. They'll say, well, we can't bail out, government's saying, we can't bail out the banks after what's happened in Cyprus. It won't be fair. You've got to go to the bank accounts of the people. And this is the idea. And what they're doing is they are stealing the money of the masses to create this structure that I've just described. And so I say this to people around the world who think they're okay, who think it's not their problem, who think, oh, no, I'm making a few quid, I've got a nice house. I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not part of this network, they want your money too. So join us, come together. In there are high-tech people, people like Eric Schmidt, the executive chairman of Google, who not by coincidence have had a conference at this very hotel very recently. There is a program which has been unfolding for as long as you can see going back, of turning humans into robots, turning humans into software programs. Up to this point, modern times, last few years, it's been done by programming their perceptions so that they see the world the way they want them to see it. If you can program someone's perceptions, you program their belief, you program their behavior. Perception is the stadium on which the whole thing's played out. What they want to do now, and are in the process of doing, is going another stage beyond just programming perception. They want technology inside the human body and interacting with the human body so that the human body ceases to be what it currently is in terms of its ability to perceive itself and the world. And Google is absolutely at the forefront of this. Along with a world government, world central bank, world army, etc., single currency, they want a microchipped population which would have external control of the physical mind, not that there is any physical, mind, body, emotions. Now, what Google is there for is to develop this technology, and people like the Bilderbergs, some of them, especially politicians, are there to sell this technology, is to introduce it into society with us thinking it's a good thing. And you look at now how fast humans have become almost partly connected to machines. You walk down a station platform in the morning. Look at that. It's the thing here. What's that? Did that grow? Was he born with that? What's going on? You know, oh, I'm just going to Twitter. I'm just going to Twitter the fact that I'm going to the toilet and I'll be back in a minute. All right. Are you going to tell them if it's a number one or a number two? I mean, it's too much information, man, you know. But that's what's happening. And these Google glasses, again, this Google Glass, it's all about getting people closer and closer to interacting with machines and accepting technology into the human body. And they've got this thing, Google, called Google X. It's a secret laboratory in California where they're developing this stuff. Now, what this interacts with is an organization, one of the most sinister on the planet, called DARPA. DARPA is the technology development arm of the Pentagon. It's developing all this stuff to take us over technologically, to create robot armies and all the rest of it. Interesting that the head of DARPA, until relatively recently, was a lady called Regina Duggan. She ran this sinister organization, DARPA. She then had a rather remarkable career move. She became an executive of Google. And this very week, she was promoting for another company of which she is an executive, Motorola, something you may have come across in the papers called the electronic tattoo. And what she was saying, and the Motorola was saying, they want to replace passwords with the electronic tattoo. And that is the totalitarian tiptoe. The electrical tattoo is one step from the internal microchip. This is where we're going, and we need to see it, and we need to stand in front of a truck and say enough, no further. All these different and various ways, this is why it's so vital to connect dots to see the picture. In all these various ways, what's going on in there ain't people having a chat. It's people in all these different subject areas developing a coordinated, agreed policy that can be played out in the public arena while manifesting, as all know, it's just random. This government's decided that, that government's decided that, when it's all coming out from the spider. So, we are here today at a fantastic moment because never ever in the history of this crowd have they faced a crowd as big as this knowing what they're on about. Never before, never before. This is history, but we need to kick on from here because there's three things that are vital to the few controlling the many. One is to keep the many in ignorance of what they're doing. That is now being put right by the alternative media and the communication of this information. A second one is the population being kept in acquiescence. The many kept in acquiescence to the few. That's the next one we need to sort out. Stop acquiescing. We need to come together and have a mass, non-violent, non-cooperation campaign the world over in which we refuse to cooperate with our own enslavement. Because only if we refuse to cooperate with our own enslavement is it possible for the few to do this to the many. And there's the third thing they absolutely desperately want. And that is divide and rule. They cannot do it without that. And look at it. We divided as a world on the fault lines, the manufactured fault lines of religion and culture and race and all the rest of it, and income bracket. And, you know, they're picking each section off while the other one looks the other way and says, it's not my problem. Well, a man said something like this after the Nazi years in Germany. First they came for the Jews and I was not a Jew, so I did nothing. Then they came for the communists. I was not a communist, so I did nothing. Then they came for the trade unionists. I was not a trade unionist, so I did nothing. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. That is what they're doing now. Oh, it's the Muslims. Let's demonize the Muslims. Let's demonize the poor. Let's demonize people with one bedroom too many when they're on benefits. Let's demonize everyone. Turn the rest of them against them, and when the demonized ones have been picked off, then we'll come for you. This is what is happening, and we need to come together. Open the heart, open the mind, irrespective of religion, race, I don't care. We are all one consciousness having different experiences. And that beginning has been to bring vast numbers of people, and that needs to continue, my goodness, into an awareness that the world was not like they thought it was, and it's not run by forces that they thought it was run by. That's now reached clearly a point all over the world, and my goodness, I can tell you because I work on it all day, the bloody graph is going skywards in terms of people waking up to their true nature. And now, along with continuing that, we need to go to stage 2. And that is to cease to acquiesce and cease to submit with that which we're now aware of. Yeah! No more fear of authority. No more fear of anything. Yeah! And you know, people in uniform here, you know, people in uniform here, you have children and grandchildren that are going to have to live in the world that I'm describing, and that which you are protecting, not that it needs to be, we don't want any problem, but we don't do what they do there. We don't manipulate the world to more slaughter and more control and more imposition of the will of the few on the many. You've got to start to realize that you are part of us and start to break down those barriers and stop working for your children and grandchildren's own enslavement by keeping these people from the public eye. I say that to soldiers, troops, you're going abroad to lands with brown faces and you're devastating them, not for your country, but for those that are controlling your country, dictating to your country and seeking to enslave your country for your children and grandchildren. Put your weapons down. Refuse to do it. This is the next stage where we stop playing a part in the enslavement of ourselves. And you know, there was a mantra song that I came across a long time ago, which just had 4 lines, so appropriate now. It went, we are the power in everyone. We are the dance of the moon and the sun. We are the hope that will never hide. We are the turning of the tide. And so we are. And it's so clear today that that tide is starting to move. And this is the last thing I'll say in terms of where we're at, to put it in perspective. We here outnumber the 140 by a very large margin. Let's just visualize that. People here in front of me massively outnumber the 140 who are orchestrating the direction of the world on behalf of masters that they are terrified of. Now, take this and imagine 7 billion people, and those 140 are doing that to them. What did I say? What did I say earlier? The world is mad. The world is a complete inversion of itself. And what we need is a peaceful, non-cooperative campaign. The non-comply dance, as I call it. Peaceful because we ain't joining them. You can have revolutions, and history is littered with them, where violent revolutions remove a tyranny, and what follows is another form of tyranny. You do not create a peaceful society, a loving society, a caring society, and a just society with violence. We can do this peacefully, and we have the numbers. As the poet Shelley said, rise like lions after slumber, with unvanquishable number. Shake your chains to earth like dew. Wish in sleep have fallen on you. Ye are many, they are few. Every time the Bilderberg group meets, they send out messages to the world. We are the ones sending out messages from this Bilderberg 2013. And it is, we ain't having it anymore. We know what you're doing. We're not having it. Human race, get off your knees, because the lion sleeps no more. Every time the Bilderberg group meets, they send out messages to the world. We are the ones sending out messages from this Bilderberg 2013. And it is, we ain't having it anymore. We know what you're doing. We're not having it. Human race, get off your knees, because the lion sleeps no more. And the people gathered to say, enough! I think the best thing that you can do to understand the world and to understand yourself is to realize it ain't you that's mad, it's the world we live in, and it's the people who run it. That's when the penny drops. Because what we've got is a situation where insanity has become normal. And this is how it happens. You're born into a madhouse, but you're told it's sane. You grow up in a madhouse. There's nothing that you ever see that isn't in the madhouse. And so to you, madness is normal. And when someone comes along and says, this ain't normal, this is madness, they say, you're bloody mad. And you know, the mainstream media, you know, bless their cotton socks, are going to have to come to terms very soon with a simple fact, that the person they abused and ridiculed for nearly a quarter of a century was the one who was sane, and the world they believe in is what is insane. Once we realize that dynamic, the world starts to make sense. The world is upside down, and it's full of evil and slaughter and injustice for a simple reason. We, in our sleep up to this point, have allowed evil people to take control of our world, of the inversion of this world. Sitting here are thousands of loving, caring people who want peace and justice and fairness in the world. Over there is a hotel full of war criminals, parasites, right? Pedos, etc. Bankers, need I say more? I think I pronounced it correctly. And the police are protecting them from us. Police, you should be protecting us from them. So we have a situation where we have police that are very, you know, genuine, although they're being sifted out more and more, and we have police that are not very nice. But what the point I'm making here is, the police are not from the elite 1%. The police are from the people, and yet they gravitate to protect the elite 1%. This is crazy. Police, join us. We are you, you are us. And I'll give you another fantastic inversion. Bombing cities of civilians to protect them from violence. You know, and there's the mainstream, but oh no, it is the Arab Spring, they're fighting for their freedom. I'll tell you what the Arab Spring is in one single sentence. People with brown faces being played off against people with brown faces so that people with white faces can steal their land. And we have an inversion in the media, so much that we actually have a newspaper in this country that is owned by a Russian oligarch and a former employee of the KGB, and it calls itself The Independent. The world is crazy and upside down. Most crazy. The characters in there who are dictating our world day after day, year after year, look at them. Kissinger. What did he say? I don't know, mate. I've got a clue. I've never understood the word the bloody man said. And there's Rockefeller and all these people have been on. And then there's Mandelson. Mandelson. For people watching who are not